As a small business owner, you have questions. Will my cash flow cover expenses? How do I get understandable, actionable reports about my business? What is the best option for raising capital? Clarity CFO is your finance partner that thinks like an entrepreneur. We're all about helping you improve cash flow, meet opportunities with confidence, and grow your business. Visit our website at www.claritycfo.com to receive a free review of your business metrics and to start getting answers to your questions. Cash flow, confidence, growth. Visit claritycfo.com today.
Small business owners and CEOs, where do you turn for objective counsel on your most critical business decisions? How do you assure your personal growth as a CEO? How do you get an unbiased review of your plans and strategic direction? What provisions are you making for perpetuation of your business beyond yourself? For over 20 years, CEO Builder has been the answer to these questions for many Utah CEOs. Join us for a complimentary forum or coaching session through our website at www.ceobuilder.com.
As a small business owner, you are not just building a business, you're building a legacy. Let the attorneys at Callister, Nebaker, and McCullough counsel and assist you as you navigate the legal complexities of organizing, financing, and operating a successful business. At Callister, Nebaker, and McCullough, we build, cultivate, and defend legacies. Your business, your family, your future. To learn more about how we can help, call 801-530-7300 or visit us online at cnmlaw.com. That's cnmlaw.com.
It's tough for small businesses to keep up with all the new regulations, the new healthcare law, employee handbooks, human resources, OSHA safety, employment discrimination and harassment, business insurance, workers' compensation. It is all so complicated. Most business owners are doing their best just to make a small profit. If there were only a simplified way to manage all of this, now there is. Summit Risk Management and Insurance can show you how. www.summit-risk.com. That's summit-risk.com.
Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth.
Good morning, Utah small business owners. Welcome to the Small Business Hour with your hosts, Mark Hunter and Chris Brown. It's time for your business to go from small to large.
Good morning, Utah small business owners. This is Chris with the Small to Large Small Business Hour here on K-Talk. And I'm here with my good friend Mark Hunter, who's going to be telling us a little bit about today's sponsors.
Yeah, good morning, Chris. So today's sponsors are Foresight Wealth and Risk Management. And we had Jay on one of our last shows and talked about 401ks. And what they can do for business owners from the standpoint of retirement plans.
And not just huge businesses. They have a place for small businesses as well.
Right.
We learned.
So they can be reached at 801-462-2200 or Foresight Management, and that's MGT.com. So Foresight, F-O-R-E-S-I-G-H-T, MGT.com. Our second sponsor is Clarity CFO. They were on one of our previous shows, and they're an outsourced CFO.
And especially
solution.
helpful in raising capital and helping to improve cash flow for a business.
Absolutely. So they can be reached at 801-318-3062 or claritycfo.com. And all of our sponsors' contact information, Chris, are on our website at small2large.com, small2large.com.
And if you are more interested in our program or would like to be featured on one of our shows, just visit our website, and there's a contact form that you can fill out. Tell us a little bit about your business, and perhaps we could have you on.
Okay, so for our interview today, we've got Rich Tyson, who's the founder and president of CEO Builder. And CEO Builder is a sort of a professional consulting firm that helps and coaches executives at small businesses and some decent-sized businesses as well. And you've done this for 23 years, right, Rich?
I have.
And the whole goal is to kind of help improve financial returns for the organization through better management practices, and use some proprietary methods to kind of help facilitate that. So I think today we're going to be talking about one of sort of your major focuses, which is open book management, right?
That's correct. One of the key tools we use.
And so if you could, just for our listeners who may not even be familiar with that concept, could you give us just an overview of what open book management is?
Sure. There's a conventional answer to that. It's where we're taking the financial information that is typically put together for a company, balance sheet, income statement, cash flow, and sharing it beyond just the executive team, so that we're working with beyond the founder, beyond the owner, to right down to frontline employees. That said, I have a broader definition of it. I like to include with open book management the use of balanced scorecard.
Sure.
Balanced scorecard is a concept that was created by a couple of professors at the Harvard Business School, Kaplan and Norton. And basically what they look at is not only measuring financial outcomes, but the customer outcomes that drive those financial outcomes, the operational outcomes that drive customer outcomes, and even below that, the training outcomes that drive operational outcomes. And there are metrics for each of those that should be shared with employees. Then I have added my own base of the pyramid, if you will. The thing that I think drives all of it is correct employee selection. So getting the right people on the bus.
Absolutely. And balanced scorecard is something that's become an integral part of most MBA courses nowadays. I mean, it really is. It's become almost an entire management philosophy, it seems.
It really, Kaplan and Norton have structured it as a strategic model for running a business. And again, I think it is, but then if you combine it with open book management and share those metrics with employees, it's even stronger.
And just one quick aside on the open book management. I mean, and maybe this is something that would come up anyway, but that's something that some firms might be very reluctant to do because that sort of information was typically, very confidential.
So,
Yes.
so for our listeners, maybe describe what it is a little bit.
Well, like the balance sheet, the P&L, all that,
Sure.
all that
Well,
information.
Yeah, I mean, the conventionally, even prior to a conventional definition of open book management, the tendency is for small businesses and large, quite frankly, to keep their financial information very close to the vest. It's not something that they wanted to share. There was a fear of it getting out to competition through their employees. And in fact, that is one of the key costs of doing this, is to understand that you've got to have a commitment on the part of your employees that they will keep those things close, that they won't share them outside the family, if you will. And that should be cause for termination. So you are more vulnerable. That is a cost of open book management. It's a reason that companies often determine that they can't do it. And in fact, if they can't get to the point where they have that trust level, they shouldn't.
Is there a middle path? And once again, I might be jumping ahead, but I mean, do you ever work with companies who are, we can't be 100% open book, but we can still provide more information so that those employees out on the front lines can maybe integrate and take actions with more of the firm's best interests in mind?
Yes. Let's use an example here. I have a client that I've worked with that determined that they just didn't want to give profitability data and expense data to their employees. So what we developed was a ratio of gross profit to operating expense, so that in utilization of this metric, you're giving a ratio. So initially the goal was to get better than a 1.0 on gross profit over operating expense. 1.0 was break even. And so as time went along, we kept raising that bar, but the employees really raised it. As they saw, hey, we're at 1.0, now we're at 1.1, and so forth, they began to engage at a higher level. And that's what Open Book's all about, is getting a higher level of engagement on the employees. So, I mean, they're really, without Open Book, I believe, and most companies, quite frankly, don't have it, at least smaller companies. It's like driving a car without a dashboard.
Right.
You don't know how fast you're going. You don't know how much fuel you're consuming. You can't connect it to the destination you're going and how long it's going to be to get there. Open Book solves those problems. You've heard the phrase, it's lonely at the top. I don't think it has to be as lonely as it is.
Right.
Because when you garner up all that information, you don't share it with your employees, then you have the problem of, boy, this is all resting on my shoulders. We want to distribute that load. The traditional method of doing that is delegation. But if you delegate to people who are blind, who don't have the dashboards, they're in trouble.
Yeah, and it's good, I think, if employees at all levels can understand how their role, however small it might seem, can contribute to these overall organizational objectives. Now, one of the things that I know you talk a lot about are key performance indicators.
Yes.
So what kind of key performance indicators do you look for in an organization? How do you determine what those should be?
Sure. Well, again, in those categories that I talked about earlier, there are KPIs or key performance indicators in every one of them. So you're going to have financial KPIs. The interesting thing about financials, though, is they're always the result of something else. They are a lagging indicator. So when you ask about KPIs, there are leading indicators and there are lagging indicators. So what we want for employees is to understand what the lagging indicator is, but then we want them to understand what they can do to drive that number to make it better. So when I mentioned the ratio earlier, it's what can I do to improve that ratio? Maybe all I have is the opportunity to work with operating expenses. And so I'm going to watch the budget carefully. On the other hand, a salesman has top line opportunity. If he's quoting prices and so forth, he has profit impact. And so it begins to say, okay, what are the leading indicators again that drive that? If you look at it, customer outcomes drive financial outcomes. Absolutely. So they are a leading indicator, leading KPI, whatever those are, and they do vary company to company, that drive the financial outcomes. We have to continually ask ourselves, what makes the cash register ring?
Right.
And now we can measure those things, and how do our employees create those through our operating system? So there are leading indicators from the operating system into the customer outcomes, into the dollars, and so forth, even down to training. How do we train our people to provide those operating outcomes? And even the lower level yet, how do we recruit the right people to do these things?
Sure.
So you can see, again, I'm connecting balanced scorecard with open book management.
Absolutely. And one of the things about, lagging indicators that it does seem that so often firms focus on those financial outcomes, which there's always a lag. And so you'll see these big firms, and just Research in Motion comes to mind, who all the financial indicators looked great right up until the moment that they were a disaster.
Right.
And I think it's because so many people were focusing only on the lag. They still had sales until they didn't. And figuring out kind of ahead of time what drives that process is important to any business.
It's critical. When you look at any business, again, and every business is going to be different, but you have to understand what drives those financial outcomes. And frankly, you better understand finance enough, have enough financial literacy in your company. So you're sharing with your employees a lot of financial data. They need to understand it. I find so often with my clients that frontline employees often think if we have a real big revenue number, that we're doing great.
It's all good.
Yeah, but we have to get deeper. What's the gross profitability? What's the net profitability? What's the cash flow implications? We can be incredibly profitable all the way through that income statement, but typical
can't make
companies,
payroll.
No, yeah, you're on accrual accounting, so it looks real good, but cash flow, you're in trouble.
Right.
And so we have to educate to that ultimate lagging indicator of financials, and then educate our way down through those drivers or leading indicators as well.
Now, when we look at something like open book management, and obviously there's both some probably tangible and intangible costs associated with doing that.
Yes.
What are those?
Well, I think the first cost that we run into here is the cost of that I mentioned earlier. We've got to sit down with our employees, an owner or a executive team, and say, start with the executive team and say, okay, do we have the trust level in our team to share this data, and how are we going to manage that policy? Because frankly, you should have non-disclosures in place and non-competes, because The reality is, especially as a company grows larger, without those things in place, you may have some data run away from you. There are, as we talked about earlier, some ways to protect that with ratios and other things, but inevitably, you don't want any of it to get out. So that is the first cost that you have to look at. When we go deeper there, the issue then becomes, what are we going to measure and how do leading and lagging indicators work together? And so that kind of discussion has to happen. I would love to tell you one size fits all on this thing, but again, every company is unique. And so part of the role we play in CEO Builder is to ask the right questions to understand what those relationships are. And that is a significant cost. You can't bypass that process.
Well, sometimes the data may not even be there.
That's right. Sometimes you look at it and say, well, we need to know this, and we're not collecting that data. One of the things I've learned on that, though, is that one of the entryways to this is to pick something you can measure, start measuring it, and it will create new questions of what needs to be measured. One of the great analogies I like is Major League Baseball. If you look at what drives financial outcomes for Major League Baseball, you have to have winning teams. Mm-hmm. Well, what drives winning teams? If you look at historically, the old school managers and scouts would tell you, well, it's earned run average, it's batting average, and so forth. If you look at Billy Beane with the Oakland A's, you may have seen Moneyball.
Absolutely, it's a great book.
Yeah. They look at that and say, wait a minute, it's getting on base that scores runs, that wins games. And so they develop that linkage, and that has changed the way baseball is being done. They use what they call sabermetrics now to measure those things.
It's more of a marginal analysis, it seems, rather than just a gross outcome analysis.
Absolutely.
And I think that, but that's a hard thing for businesses to do. I mean, we're used to an outcome. We sold X number of products, we close this many deals, and we're not necessarily looking at all the increments.
That's true. And again, one of the challenges, costs of open book management, is the issue of taking the time to really think through these linkages, to work with your employees, to engage them so that they own it. And the reality is we're all very, very busy. And so to take the time to do this is tough. But if you take a casual approach to open book management, you can just basically throw it on the slag heap of management gimmicks. Mm-hmm. You've got to invest the time, and that is the cost that has to be paid.
So I've got a question. As a small business owner with
Mm-hmm.
a handful of employees,
Sure.
20 employees, can a small company use these same types of
Absolutely.
techniques?
Yeah, even easier often than implementing in a big company, because you can pull together your team and really address these issues. One of the key issues for you, Mark, as a business owner, is to understand the ultimate vision that you want for your company. What are the outcomes? Often when I ask that question, it's, well, I want to build a company up big enough to take it public or to sell it. And so understanding that in the executive suite then says, okay, I've got to, in motivating ways, share that with my employees, not to scare them off. I'm going to sell your
That's
job
always
out
a
from
danger.
under you. Yeah, but rather to say we want to build the value of this company. We want to do more to create higher value in the company. You've got to maintain that vision with them. And so one of the challenges I see with CEOs is to be able to do that, to maintain that challenge and that vision.
Okay, well, I think this is all really good. We're leading into our break. I have some more questions on open book management, and I'm really fascinated by how we can go into an organization and come up with those key performance indicators as well, because I think that a lot of the organizations that I work with, they don't have the data, they don't have the analytics. I mean, even if they have the data, they don't necessarily have a means of putting it together in some useful form. So let's pick up on that right after the break.
Great.
There are 5 key questions every successful business owner asks every day. How can we increase innovation? How can we reduce operating costs? How can we grow our sales and market share? How can we create new products and stay cutting edge? And how can we improve our cash flow? By Monday's Howcanology web app answers all of those questions by empowering your employees to become valuable, producing entrepreneurs. Contact By Monday at 801-225-1600 to learn more about Howcanology.
As a small business owner, I have struggled with controlling my workers' compensation costs. Some of my injured workers have really taken advantage of the system, costing me an arm and a leg, no pun intended. I finally found someone who can help, Summit Risk Management and Insurance. They have saved my company thousands of dollars on my insurance costs and have improved my safety program. I recommend them to any business owner. www.summit-risk.com. That's summit-risk.com.
If you own a small business, you've experienced problems with technology. Lost files, server crash, blue screen of death. It always means one thing, an IT nightmare that keeps you from running your business. IT Now keeps those IT nightmares at bay. IT Now is the leading provider of professional IT services for small and medium businesses. Call IT Now today for a free network evaluation, and soon you could be nightmare-free and experience the bliss of things running as they should. 801-562-8778.
Phil, your golf game is amazing. Where do you find the time?
I've been using ADP for my business, the world leader in payroll services. I manage my payroll, retirement plan, and HR all on my iPad, mobile app, or with a quick phone call. It's easy and really affordable.
I'm just so busy. Sounds great. How do I get a quote?
Call Dave at 800-422-3705. He's been with ADP here in Utah for 15 years.
Thanks. That number was 800-422-3705.
Okay, we're back with Rich Tyson of CEO Builder, and right before the break, we were talking about how to implement open book management, and I was hoping you could give us some examples of ways that companies have done that, and particularly if you have any examples of companies that maybe have done it in an innovative way that wasn't wildly expensive or hugely complex.
Sure. Well, one of the great examples of this is a client that actually brought in, they were a division of a company out of Ohio. They brought in an outside general manager to look at turning things around. Very unprofitable company, had been around for 20 years, and they just kind of slogged along the last few years. And as that was happening, they brought this turnaround guy in and said, look, you have a choice. You can either turn it around or shut it down. Mm-hmm. And so when he walked in the door, the employees knew that much. That was open book, very clear to them. And so they were petrified. He sat down with them and he said, let's just talk about why we're losing money here. And they in an open, collaborative manner, and this was his executive team, said, okay, here are the half a dozen reasons we're not making it. And as they looked at it, they said so much of that had to do with sloppiness. They are a manufacturing firm, and if you looked at every day, what happened at the end of the day is they left their workstations, and they had various workstations in the production process, left them very dirty, unorganized, didn't put their tools away. And so the next day became really the first hour of work was
just wasted time.
Yeah, cleaning up and getting productive. So this fellow, a student of the Toyota manufacturing system, said, hey, I remember from Toyota's approach to getting lean, they use something called 5S. I won't go through the 5 S's with you because they're all Japanese words. Okay. But basically it's clean up, sort up, get things put where they belong. And so he sat down with the executive team again and said, I think this is what we need to do. If we can get thoroughly productive here, I think we can get into the black and make money. When they understood that, and this goes to the education issues, once you determine what to do tactically, you have to know enough to create the process. There have to be what I call essential actions that have to be done, and then management has to sustain those actions. And so as they talked about this, they said, we really can't afford a computer-driven solution here. We can't afford to have big screens in the factory that tell us whether we've done our job or not. But we can, once we've determined how to clean up, sort out, do all of the 5 S's of 5S, we can define what the essential actions are for every employee, and that they will do those every day before they leave, that the last half hour of their workday is getting everything in place so that when they arrive at work in the morning, they're ready to go to work and they're fully productive. That's the essential actions they define. The sustaining actions came from the general manager. He said, I will be into work every morning before you get here, and I will grade you on how well you have used 5S. So now the grading, here's where we get open book. He put a big whiteboard on the wall. He put the workstations, made a schematic or a map of the work area, and each of the workstations were there. And so every day he would come in and he would put a green sticker onto the workstation if it was cleaned up and done well, a yellow sticker if it needed some work, and that just meant you better fix it, and a red sticker if it meant they were doing a terrible job. And if that was the case, then if you got 3 red stickers, whoever was responsible for that workstation, their job was on the line.
Sounds a little bit like accountability.
Yes, it is. Absolutely an accountability system. Notice again, though, the essential actions were that they would do the work and he would grade them. That was his sustaining action. He actually did this over a period of years. The first year that he did it, he asked me to come in after this program was in place, and he said, will you interview all of our employees? I said, gladly, I'll do that. What do you want? He gave me about a dozen questions, but he basically only had 2 he cared about. One was, is 5S working in your opinion, and what do you think of 5S? Kind of a combination question. And secondly, what do you think of me as your manager? The answer to that after a year was, well, we like 5S better than being unemployed.
Right.
And we think the manager is a tyrant. And so gave him that feedback, and he said, okay, we probably need some additional reinforcement for doing it well. So if you've got 3 weeks of green stickers, you get a perk of some kind. And his perks were not terribly expensive, little things just to reinforce that they're doing a good job. After the second year, I came in again and asked the questions again. He changed some of them, but those 2 were the critical questions. And after the second year, what I heard from the employees was, 5S seems to be okay. We're making money again. This isn't bad.
We're still employed.
Yeah, and actually not worried about their jobs. And then, what do you think of him? Well, he's still a tyrant. He keeps doing this. He comes in every day. Those stickers change every morning. He's a tyrant, but we like him better because the system's working.
Right.
Third year, did this again. And so in coming in on that third year, all of a sudden the answers change. It is, what do you think of 5S? We love 5S. We're a 5S company. It's who we are. Notice there's a culture change that happened as a result of posting that. And again, this is open book, but it's dedicated to a lean principle. And what do you think of him? And the answer was, boy, he's a gem. We love this guy.
Right.
Now, he had actually delegated some of that sustaining action. But the reality is this was a low-tech, inexpensive approach to turning a company around, getting them making money.
Well, and one thing I picked up on that is it took a little bit of time for the
It did.
employees to kind of buy off on it.
It did.
And so it's, I guess, the key there, I guess maybe my takeaway is that there's not necessarily a quick fix.
No, this is not a quick buck here. You've got to invest the time in it. I find that open book often fails because people don't understand that we don't get an immediate result out of it. We have to invest the time and effort. I've had CEOs say to me, why did this fail? And I'm always uncomfortable saying this, but usually the answer is because of you. You didn't sustain the system, and it went away.
Well, and if you think about that company, it took 20 years to create the culture that they had.
That's right.
Which was dysfunctional.
Absolutely.
So you can't expect that in 1 year or even 2 that you're going to shift the culture so much.
You're right.
It's going to take time. But so often, when people are you always hear this term results driven, but sometimes what they really mean is that they want instant results.
Oh, yeah.
And so they're results driven as long as the result happens next week or next month. And sometimes I think that becomes a hindrance to better management policies.
Well, and wouldn't we all like to get rich quick? I mean, that's a normal human emotion. But the reality here is he defined an operational system that drove better customer outcomes, that drove profitability. They were losing customers. They started gaining customers because they were not only effective. I don't think they were ever a terribly ineffective company in doing what they were doing, but they had become a very efficient company in doing it. And so that efficiency began to take the form of the ability to be more competitive in their pricing, to maintain profitability. And one of the neat outcomes was that, and I don't know if you caught this in what I'm saying, but it changed who those employees were.
Oh, sure.
This is who we are. We're a 5S company. When they started recruiting new people into the system, this good manager says, hey, as you come onto a workstation, talk to your fellow workers there and see what the expectations are. And the expectation is very clear. Don't screw up our system.
Right.
Because and as was part of that system implemented from the employees as well? I mean, were they giving their input along the way?
Sure. Yeah, they were engaged at several levels. Initially, executive team, but then they invited each group from each workstation to say, okay, how are you going to do this here? How will you apply 5S at this particular workstation?
Yeah, it's a lot easier to get their buy-in if they're
Well, they've got
their
the
ideas.
more granular understanding of what exactly happens there.
Right. There's process and there's content. 5S was the process. They created the content of how to use it.
Now, do you find when you're working with new companies that they're already aware of Open Book? Is this something that business owners are aware of, or is it a new concept to many businesses?
Most people have heard the term. It basically is just an extension of collaboration. It says, hey, we want to engage our people, but it goes beyond collaboration as is normally thought about it, that, hey, this small group of executives collaborate. We're extending this from that executive suite to everyone and trying to get the very best out of them. This works so well with lean manufacturing, and you can apply lean, by the way, to any company, including service companies. Part of lean is Kaizen, continuous improvement. So you invite your employees to tell you, how do we make it better? And this works with that.
Well, so often the best ideas come from the most unlikeliest places, because we can have a strategy session of executives to try and figure out how to improve some process, but oftentimes the person who's actually doing the process
knows it best.
Yeah.
And sometimes the newest player on the team. You may have heard the story of one of the great tire companies. This has been probably 30, 40 years ago, but they brought their engineers together and they said, how do we improve the efficiency on wrapping our tires? And so this group of engineers, all of the guys that have been there for years, are talking about, boy, this is a very expensive process. We can save $1 million if we can just do it faster and better. Young man at the table finally says, I'm the newest engineer on the team. Could I just ask one question?
Why do we wrap tires?
And the reality is, well, there was a time with white sidewalls, but that time has passed.
Yeah.
And so by eliminating it, they saved $20 million, the total cost of doing the job.
Sure.
And sometimes we have our blinders on. All of us do. I've done this always this way. It's become a sacred cow. And so we need to challenge it. So much of this is questioning your answers.
Well, and you have to have an organizational culture where it's okay to ask the questions.
Absolutely. And that there's no dumb question. And I know that's hard sometimes, because sometimes they really seem like dumb questions. But we have to be tolerant of that. And sometimes the dumbest question gets us to the right answer.
Sure. So we're only have a few minutes left here, so I wanted to just get to a couple other questions. Back to Open Book. What sort of statistics or data out there supports your use of Open Book and promotion of Open Book as a management method?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. There's a recent study that's done by the Dennison Consulting Group. They've done a broad-based study, and what they've found is that companies that will use Open Book consistently rank in the top 10% of financial performing companies. Again, these are companies that have thoroughly implemented it, but I think the financial outcomes certainly justify the use of Open Book.
Yeah, even if it's somewhat a painful process for some companies to get there.
Well, almost anything that is really good has got some effort to be made.
So if you could just real quickly in our last couple of minutes, just tell me a little bit about CEO Builder and what else you do besides Open Book and how people can get into contact with you.
Sure. Well, we use a variety of models within CEO Builder. This is just one of them. We don't believe anything fits everybody, and even with Open Book, there's no one precise one-size-fits-all approach. But we really work in 4 areas. We stress strategy development, team building, problem solving, and managing for results. Open Book is one of those disciplines, and not all of them are this way, but it really touches all 4 of those, so we really like that. But it is not the only thing we use. We use a lot of lean manufacturing concepts. We really are strong on financial metrics and understanding them, financial literacy, and we believe that we can help any company to improve their bottom line and had a good history of doing that. So
I know you also do some one-on-one coaching.
Absolutely.
And is that generally with C-level executives, or do you do it with the whole organization?
We will engage the C-level executives, the CEO, the owner, but we will allow that to broaden to others. And we have our monthly CEO forums where we engage non-competing CEOs together. We have MBA level training for half a day, and then they become a quasi board of directors to each other.
So that is it ceobuilder.com? Is that
it is, ceobuilder.com.
And for people who still use telephones, how would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can call me, 801-706-1253.
You know, we're always on our phones, but it's hardly ever to make a call, it seems.
Yeah, well, a call or a text will both work.
Oh, a text too. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Rich, and we hope to have you on again soon. There's so many management topics that we'd love to talk to you about that could be helpful to businesses of all sizes. So thank you again.
Thank you.
It's time for this week's First Utah Business Spotlight.
Great. Well, welcome back. This is Mark Hunter, and I'm here with Chad Bennett, who's the CEO of Box Support. So welcome to the show, Chad. So tell us what Box Support is and what you do for your customers.
Yeah. All right. So Box Support provides enterprise-strength computer security and support for home users and small businesses. Basically, what we've done is we've taken the technology of enterprise companies, the same things that enterprise companies are paying tens of thousands of dollars every month for, and we've packaged it together and we're providing it for the home users, for people that don't usually have the resources to be able to get this type of security.
Okay, so how are you better than, say, like a virus scan?
Great. No, that's a great question. So, when most people think of computer security, they think of a virus scan. They think of that type of a solution. And virus scan is helpful, but in and of itself, it's not enough. In fact, Symantec, one of the largest virus scan companies in the world, just a couple months ago came out and said virus scan as an individual service is a dead service. It's not enough to secure computers from the things that are happening today, the malware that's out there, the targeted attacks that are out there. And so it requires, to secure a computer today, it requires a lot more than just a proactive solution or a reactive solution like a virus scan. And so what our solution does is it takes into account multiple different systems to be able to block the things that are going on, the bad stuff that's out there on the internet, the malware that's trying to get through, the bots that are trying to connect to your computer. And so in addition to virus scan, we offer backup solutions, proactive solutions to make sure that they're actively blocking them, firewall solutions, advanced threat protection, and many more. But ultimately, we take the important pieces of enterprise security and we package it up and provide it to those home users, and VirusScan is just one part of that.
So just for our listeners' benefit, what is enterprise security? What is that exactly?
Enterprise security is a group of many different things that you're put in place. So what you normally use as computer security right now is reactive solutions, like a firewall solution or an antivirus solution. An enterprise security is really proactive solutions to actively block things that might be trying to get in. So, and in addition to being on the computer, it's on the perimeter, maybe on your router, or sits on the perimeter of your network to block things before they can actually get to the computer.
How important is it for a consumer to protect their computer?
Yeah, so extremely important. The statistics show that your computer is 1,000 times more likely to be broken into or hacked than your home to be broken into. And with that statistic, you're also more likely to lose more money because of the computer break-in than you would with a home break-in.
So you're not losing your TV, but you might lose your identity and have it stolen, and then could cost you lots of money down the road, even more than the cost of your TV.
Exactly. You lose your identity. Hackers can break into your bank account and steal your money directly from your bank account, steal personal information, steal family pictures, and really steal that stuff that is really valuable to you. You know, your identity, your private information. They have all access to that if they can break into your computer.
And they might even have access to medical information if you're storing that on your computer too.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are you doing differently, say, from other companies in the industry?
Yeah, most companies in our industry, they're really focused on the support side. If something breaks on your computer, or if you can't get into your email, or if you need to install a piece of software on your computer, and those are all great services, and we offer those services. That's a part of our service is the support side. But what we're doing differently is we really focus on the security side. We're focusing on securing your computer so that these things don't happen, that the things that are really going to cost you a lot of money and a lot of heartache, we're securing it from those things so that that stuff doesn't happen, and that ultimately people can get back to doing what they love to do. They don't like fixing their computer, and they definitely don't like having to fix the problems if their identity's been stolen.
Okay, great. Well, how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah. So boxsupport.com is our website. You can go boxsupport, BOXSUPPORT.com. We have, right now, we have over 80 full-time employees. We're based in Provo, Utah. We also have a 1-800 number, so that's 1-800-BOX-4085, 1-800-269-4085. We've got U.S. technicians standing by. Our technicians are certified and trained to provide quality computer support. And
so when I call them, I'm likely able to understand them, and they're able to understand me.
Yep.
Okay.
We are based here in Provo, Utah, and support agents standing by here in Provo to take your calls and to support your computer and your network, and ultimately to support your family, to make sure that your data is safe and secure from the evils out there in computing.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks. Chad Bennett with CEO of Box Support. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me.
Are you frustrated about your sales performance? Do you have the right people on your team? Are you stuck at a routine in terms of business development? Sandler Training is a global leader in sales and business development training and has been creating solutions and accelerating the success of high achievers for over 30 years. If it's time to take your business to the next level, contact Sandler Training at 801-639-0488. 801-639-0488. Is your business struggling with the cost of an employer-sponsored health insurance plan? Learn how your business and employees may benefit from new rules under the Affordable Care Act. There's no reason for you to continue bearing this unnecessary cost. Call the experts at Summit Risk Management and Insurance, 801-671-2431. That's 801-671-2431. Learn more at www.summit-risk.com. That's summit-risk.com.
If your business doesn't have social and mobile marketing strategies in today's digital marketing place, then you're quickly getting left behind. Don't get left behind. Get Social 5. Social 5's team of professional writers, graphic artists, and tech experts helps businesses with mobile, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, email, SEO, campaigns, contests, plus more. For a free consultation, go to social5.com. Don't be invisible in today's digital marketplace. Get Social 5.
It's tough for small businesses to keep up with all the new regulations, the new healthcare law, employee handbooks, human resources, OSHA safety, employment discrimination and harassment, business insurance, workers' compensation. It is all so complicated. Most business owners are doing their best just to make a small profit. If there were only a simplified way to manage all of this, now there is. Summit Risk Management in Insurance can show you how. www.summit-risk.com. That's summit-risk.com.
Welcome back. Here's our second Utah Business Spotlight for the week.
This is Mark Hunter, and I'm here with Randy Peters of RP Painting. Randy, tell us a little bit about RP Painting and what you do.
I would say that most people would think of RP Painting as a full-service commercial painting contractor servicing Western United States for a period of 35 years.
Okay.
I would like to look at it differently. I'd like to look at RP Painting as a painting contractor that spends its time developing relationships with premier general contractors in the different states. We believe in working with relationships more than just winning a bid. We like the relationships to be more positive, more one-on-one with those relationships. It just makes things easier.
So what happens when there's not a good relationship with that general contractor?
Well, having a good relationship, it brings on, if there is a situation or a problem, then it's easier to come together with your differences and have the scenario work out positive for them and for us.
So does that set you apart from your competitors, those types of relationships? Tell me about that.
Definitely. In the bidding process, with having those relationships, these people know RP Painting and they know what our values are. That service is number one. Quality is top of the list. Quality products are the top of the list. They know they're going to get all that stuff. They don't have to tell us that they want that stuff or write it in a contract. They know that's just who we are. And it gets to be a situation where when the contractor or whoever our customer is feels good about you, they already know what you represent. They don't have to spend their time monitoring a job and all the other facets that come into that process. They know that we got good workman's comp rates, best in the valley. They know that they just don't have to worry about all those little things that might catch them up later on down the road with another contractor.
Now, you brought up workers' comp. That's an interesting point because with construction, there's a huge issue with safety. I'm in the risk management business, so I understand about insurance. I understand about safety and OSHA. For a general contractor, it's critical that those subcontractors that they're hiring have a good track record from a safety standpoint. Otherwise, they could be liable. So how has that been impactful for your company, and what have you done to make sure that you're ensuring safety with your workforce?
Our safety program is something we just don't tolerate anything less than perfect. All our employees, every one of our employees are OSHA 10 certified. More than half are MSHA certified. They all take training classes for the equipment we use, even down to the airlesses. But the high reach equipment, the JLGs, that stuff. They're all certified to use that equipment.
So these are man lifts.
Man lifts, boom trucks, even our trucks that we drive around. There's certain procedures we make sure they do on a day-to-day basis on the trucks. So they're highly trained, and that is one of the most important parts about our business is our mod rate. I think it's 0.71. I think that's the lowest.
So about 30% below the industry average then.
Below the average. And in the state of Utah, we're about 40% because a lot of people are carrying a 1+ mod rate.
Sure.
And so for here, we're doing fantastic. The general contractors, they know that. We have pre-qualification forms we fill out, and those forms ask for that rate. So they know what they're dealing with when they go into the bidding process.
So they hire RP Painting, they're going to know that they're going to have safe workers on their work site, which reduces their exposure.
Exactly.
Both from potential litigation and from OSHA penalties.
Right.
You're a small business owner. What's that like?
It can be stressful at sometimes, and it can be very rewarding at sometimes. As an owner, I have many people surrounding me that make this company what it is. We built this company as a personality, so we kind of think of RP Painting as like a little person, and then all the people involved in RP Painting make up that personality of that little person, and that's what we really try to market. We don't try to market individuals. We try and market that little entity. And when we push that envelope, we're always pushing that envelope to make that a better situation. You know what I mean?
Sure. All right. Well, Randy Peters, thank you for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, once again, Mark, those were two great businesses on our business spotlights this week.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, it's just always interesting to see all the things that the different companies are doing. I think that in both cases, we had businesses who have, kind of found an interesting niche. I mean, with box support, they're trying to provide that, like you said, enterprise level security and support to home users. And I've seen some statistics that are just frightening on the number of computers that are compromised in some way. And people just keep using those computers and putting in their personal information and their family photographs and everything else into what might be a compromised system.
Yeah, and we need to spend more time talking about cyber liability. I think we have a show coming up that we might be discussing
for businesses in particular, because
businesses.
they've got some major exposure there if they were to lose data. But for a home user, of course, your exposure is different. You're not going to get sued because you lost data, but you could incur tremendous expenses trying to restore your identity or repair your credit, or like you said, if they get the right information, they could just empty your bank account.
Well, it was just in the news that a large medical facility just had a breach, and there was a lot of medical. I don't know if it was hundreds of thousands or millions of medical records.
It was a lot, whatever. Yeah.
So I know it is individual, but they also do. Box Support also does support similar type services for small businesses as well.
Yeah, a very, very good option. And then of course we had RP Painting, that's kind of found their niche as a painting contractor. Sounds like they're kind of working all over the place, doesn't it?
Well, not only that, but they're really focused on safety and making sure that they're watching out for their employees, and that in turn is good for the general contractors that they're working with.
Yeah, so. One thing that a lot of contractors don't think about is that their poor safety record, particularly if it's caused a lot of workers' compensation claims, could make it hard for them to get work.
Yeah, it's not only could they be fined by OSHA, the downsides to having people off work, the cost of workers' comp and your experience mod, but also, right, like you said, lost revenue because they can't bid on jobs, like you said, particularly for contractors.
Yeah, it's because the generals either want somebody who's going to be safer on the job, or they just may not be cost competitive because of all the additional deadweight costs that they're incurring because of those on-the-job injuries.
Right.
So
these are the types of things we'll be talking about in our workshops, and so I want to mention our workshops. We'll be posting those schedules coming up very soon on our website, and those will be starting in October. We're looking for people to become members and participate in that group. Go to our website, small2large.com, small2large.com, and you can sign up or see the schedule from there. Also want to make mention that these business spotlights we do as a free service. So if you're a small business owner headquartered here in Utah, give us a call, reach out to us, contact us through the website, and we'll look to your company to maybe do a spotlight for you.
If you're small and you're local and you're doing something that is interesting, and every business has got something that's interesting, we'd be happy to have you on the show. But otherwise, just everybody have a great day, and see you here next week.